All right, guys. A lot of good information, right? All right, so I'm going to tie all this together because that actually was the last speaker before I speak about the real estate side. But I wanted to tie it all together because if you have this roadmap that Sarah put together, pull that out real quick. I want to kind of walk you through the process because there's a lot of speakers and Sarah strategically placed them in the order that she felt like was going to serve you guys best. But I wanted to take a little moment to go over this roadmap to home ownership real quick. Just kind of tie it together. Because the first step that you're gonna do is you're gonna hire a real estate professional. So obviously Sarah put this together, so you're gonna call Sarah, right? So what happens is she will do all these people that you're hearing from today. The real estate professional is the one that gets all this stuff set up for you. Because it's a lot. You probably won't recall a lot of what was said today, but if you just follow this roadmap, pretty sure, I can't guarantee anything, but if you're diligent, the home ownership thing at the bottom, it will come true. As I said before when we first started, it's a mindset. If you believe you're going to do it, you will do it. The next step after hiring the agent is you're going to get pre-approved. So you just heard what that process looks like. You get pre-approved to see kind of where you're at, what your budget is, what type of home can you purchase, and then you start touring homes. Now, I like to say this. If everything is done properly, if there is a buyer presentation that takes place, then you on average, you tour about 5 houses. Now, I know a lot of people here are like, is that really enough? If we do our job well, 5 houses is actually enough. Because we're going to find out, what do you want? You want a fenced-in yard? Do you have animals? You want a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom? What area do you want to live in? Where do you want to stay away from? Like, all of that stuff is something that we would have to do when we do our consultation. Okay, so as you're touring houses, you're making notes, you're taking pictures, you're doing videos, you're FaceTiming your friends, and you find the perfect house. So what happens next? The agent will write the offer that's going to best suit you, because we actually work for you, the buyer. Unless we have a listing. In most cases, if you're in a buyer seminar, we're working for you. What goes into negotiations? How much money is the seller paying? Who's paying for survey? Who's paying for title? Who you're going to use as your inspector? Obviously, you have a great one over here to your left. So we talk about all that whenever it's time to make the offer. We negotiate with the listing agent, and we eventually come to terms, and your house will be under contract. Then what we do is you submit your earnest money and your option money to title. Andy had to leave, but Andy was explaining to you what capital title does. You basically go there, give them a check. The check depends on the sales price of the house, and that's all part of your upfront costs. Anyway, you give them the earnest money and option money at title, and then you order your home inspection. During the 10-day option is when you get your inspection done and the insurance portion. And then it says here that the title commitment comes back. What the title commitment will say, if there's any liens, judgments, or we call them clouds or encumbrances on the property, you'll know that. And then what's next is you get your home insurance. Okay, Brandon explained how that kind of works. And then it says here, negotiate optional repairs. And then the appraisal should come back somewhere between this time. Okay, then it says negotiate lender required repairs. So there are times where the lender says this needs to be done before closing. We renegotiate that with the listing side. And then you get a clear to close. That is a day to celebrate, because typically that means we're A1 to closing. There's not many hindrance coming between now and us sitting at the title company celebrating. And then it says you do a final walkthrough. Before you sign on your property, you are going to meet at the house with your agent, and we walk through it to make sure the house looks exactly like it did when you first saw it. If there were any repairs that were done or requested, we verify those repairs were done. Make a note to yourself. At the final walkthrough is not time to find other repairs. I have some clients that'll go, oh, I didn't realize that there was a crack in the wall. I want that fixed. That's not the time for that. You do that during your 10-day option period. Okay? So finally, closing day. What happens at closing day? You bring your ID, you bring a cashier's check for the money that your lender told you this is what you're bringing in. In some cases, if you use Sarah, you might bring zero to closing. Maybe I've had clients that got checks back on VA loans. So I mean, there are times where you get paid to buy a house if you're a veteran. So once again, when we have a Q&A session, talk to the lender, Mr. Charles, and maybe that's your case, but it's all case by case. But at closing day, it's the time to celebrate. You guys have achieved something that it's your duty. I say it's your duty to own a home. It's your right to own a home, and that's why you're here today. But once you close, you're going to forget a lot of stuff that happens. That's why your agent's important, because she is going to remind you to file your homestead exemption. She's going to remind you to throw away mail that you get from the appraisal district because they want to know what you sold your house for. And so Andrew can contest to that what they do is they'll tax you based on what you paid, and sometimes they have no clue what you paid, so don't answer those questions. But the escrow agent will tell you when you're at title. Okay, closing day is a very, very exciting time. The next part of it is when it funds. So you sign your paperwork, and then maybe an hour or two later, you'll get a funding notice that your house, the loan funded, which means that you get the keys to your home. And then at that point, it's your house. You can do what you want to do with it. And I know it seems like a long step, but I'm going to be honest with you, I do this in my sleep, and so does Sarah. This is what we do all day long. So for us, this is no big deal. For you guys, you're probably like, man, it's a lot, but it's really not. If you follow the advice of the partners that you heard here today, it will not be that difficult. So we're going to do a Q&A session. I'm going to respect the agenda here. So what we have next is it says here that there's a network session. Not sure how Sarah wants to do that, but I will say this. I have someone that actually purchased a home, and I want to give her an opportunity to come join me on stage because I've got a few Q&A for her. Because it's one thing to hear it from us that do it all day long, but I want you to hear it from someone that actually was sitting where you're at today and actually accomplished something great. So if you don't mind, I want to bring up, don't be bashful, come on up, Amelia. So Amelia actually purchased a home in the past. I wanted her to share a story, but I'm going to tee it up because I want to ask her a couple of questions. So let's give her some encouragement, y'all. All right. Okay, so I'm going to walk her through it so she's not nervous. All right. So buying a house can be a emotional roller coaster. I got to warn y'all, it could be up and down, all sideways, left, right. It's emotional for us too. But as a buyer, my question to you is first and foremost, how did you minimize the stress? How did you, and don't say drinking a lot of alcohol, although that might be our answer. But how do you minimize the stress of purchasing a home, all of this stuff, the roller coaster ride, like all this stuff? She did it. So I want to hear from her, and I'm sure you guys are excited too. So answer that question. How do you minimize the stress of going through the process?
So you really have to have, Sarah did a lot for us. Like, she took care of handling pretty much every person that talked today. She took care of handling all of that. And we basically just filled out paperwork and signed stuff, and we looked at houses, and like it was a roller coaster. But honestly, between family helping and Sarah helping and just having a big support system and having.
Very good. My next question is, were there any hiccups in the process that Sarah overcame, or anything that you want to share to them? Like, hey, look, by the way, when you're looking at houses, this is what I found the hard way. Any wisdom that you could share with our future home buyers here?
Hiccup-wise, it was honestly extremely easy. We were closing on a house within, like we were looking at houses in December, and then we closed in February. So, I mean, it was smooth, back-to-back, that we really didn't have any hiccups. And honestly, it was probably one of the easiest things that we had actually done, because the lending was easy, the inspections went through easy. It was easy.
Wow, that's good. All right, Sarah. And Sarah's going to pay you a little later, okay, for all that. I'm just like, Sarah made it easy, y'all. Okay, the next question, my final question for you is, what advice would you give anybody that's sitting out there today when it comes to believing that you can buy a house, to actually starting the process? Like, what advice would you give them if they're on the fence about, should I apply for the loan today? Should I just wait? Should I keep praying about it? Like, what would you tell our friends here today?
So, I have 3 kids, and we always told each other that we would wait till we were financially stable or we were ready to move in financially. But the reason we ended up moving to begin with was we were living with parents or renting, and we were tired of it. We wanted our own space. We wanted, you know, something to call our own. And if you wait to do it, you're never going to be ready. Like, if you wait till you're financially ready, nobody will ever be financially ready to do anything. We were saying that about marriage, about buying a home, about having kids, but if you want to have something to call your own, or you just have to do that jump. You have to believe in yourself, and honestly, that is really the hardest part. Is the change for me was it was different, because change to me is different, and coming up with the money was not hard, and it really we paid maybe a couple $1,000 and we had a house. Like, we had so much help with lending. We had the first home buyers help, and I mean, we were in the house for the same thing we would spend on renting. It was a lot of help on our part with everything, and I would just say, if you're gonna do it, go ahead and do it, because now honestly is the time to buy a house.
All right. Come on, Luke. You got another house here. Anyway, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you for being here. I could tell you were nervous. You killed it, girl. Yeah, go get some coffee, you guys.